Pain is temporary, but Strava is forever. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name's Chris, and today's video I'm going to do a race recap of the Shenandoah 100K MTB marathon race that takes place in Stokesville, Virginia. Let's get into it.
Hi.
Bikes! The Shenandoah 100K mountain bike race, as you might guess, is 100 kilometers in distance, which is roughly 65 miles. This race has 9,000 feet of climbing in it. That is a ton of climbing. Now, my personal goal was just to finish the race, but I had a secondary goal of finishing in less than 8 hours. I started training back in January, used Trainer Road throughout the entire year, increasing my FTP. I have a whole video on it, but just know that I used Trainer Road and I did specific bike training for this event. All right, that's enough about training. I want to talk about the bike that I used for the race. I used my Specialized Epic Evo Gen 7. This is a 2021 model year. It is 110 mil of travel in the rear and 120 mil of travel in the front. I also recently equipped it with RockShox's flight attendant suspension system before the race, and it has been great. I will have a full review and detailed analysis of the flight attendant in future videos, so if you're interested in that, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on those videos. Before the race, I put on a fresh set of tires. For the race, I chose Schwalbe's Racing Ray and Racing Ralph in their Super Ground casing. I chose the Super Ground casing because it has a little bit more puncture protection, although it gives up some rolling resistance. In trade-off for that, I wanted to be safe rather than sorry, so I chose the Super Ground casing instead of their Super Race, which is a little bit lighter casing, more prone to punctures, but definitely does roll faster. If you have any other questions about my bike setup for the race, let me know down in the comments below. Maybe if there's enough of them, I'll just make a full video describing the bike and how I have it set up and go through all the details of it. All right, let's move on from the bike to the nutrition. I used Maurten to fuel this race. I used their 320 drink mix. I had 2 bottles on the bike at all time. This worked out really well with the spacing between aid stations being roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours. I could drink those 2 bottles, refill them at the aid stations, put in the fresh drink mix, and make it to the next aid station. I never had to carry bottles or extra fuel in my jersey pockets. I just was able to keep everything on the bike, which was great. I did pack some real food in my drop bags. I really like Nature's Bakery fig bars, so I included a couple of those, and I drank some water and other things at the aid stations, but primarily was just using Maurten 320 to fuel this race. Before the race, I wanted to make sure I was fully topped off on electrolytes and properly hydrated. It was supposed to be rather warm and humid, and I tend to sweat a lot, so I definitely wanted to get ahead of this. Before the race, I drank 2 32-ounce Yetis with 1 element packet in each before the race. This helped me get all the electrolytes and fluid in before the race so that I wasn't already behind and I was fully topped off with my hydration when the race started. Just prior to the race, I also took a gel because I knew that first climb was going to be brutal. So that's my nutrition strategy for the race. Let me know if any questions, comments as well. That goes without anything through the whole video. Just let me know. I'll be happy to help. All right, now let's talk about the race. My overall goal for the race was just to finish like I had mentioned, so I did not want to go out too fast. But knowing that if I got too far back in the beginning of the race, there's a climb right off the bat that would lead to a bottleneck, I wanted to exert some energy to be near the front and not get too bottled up towards the back. Also, the majority of climbing in this course is done in the first half of the race. So my goal was to make it through to aid station 3, still in one piece, pace myself as best that I can, and then whatever I had left after aid station 3, I was going to use just to empty the tank.
Let's go, guys!
Alright, what'd you get? Which one?
Let's go, Chris! Pedal your penis off!
The race had a mass start, so all classes, all ages, all people started at the exact same time. There's roughly 200 riders that started off from the Stokesville campground, and we were led out by 2 motos, which is really cool. Just to have the motos lead you out in this huge group, funneling into this little single track trail, climbing up the mountain, kind of like ants just following in. It but it was pretty cool. So I exerted just enough energy to stay in like the front third of the group, which I think worked out really well. I was able to ride most of the sections besides the very steep parts of the initial climb that pretty much everyone was walking unless you were in the top group of riders that were riding those sections. So the first climb was pretty rough. It was roughly 7 or maybe 9 miles to the very top. It was 2,500 feet of climbing, and it just climbs up a ridge. It goes up, it goes down, but it's primarily just all steep, relatively punchy actually, uphill climb. Once you get up to the top of this climb, you descend a section of trail called Magic Moss. It was an absolute blast on the cross-country bike. Super fast, super flowy, like just rough enough for the XC bike so you could carry a lot of speed even through some of the rock sections, some tight switchbacks, jumps, pumps, rollers, berms, everything. For a George Washington National Forest trail, it was surprisingly smooth, especially on a cross-country bike. But this trail was absolutely awesome, and I met up with a fellow rider named Aaron coming down this descent, and we just tag teamed the descent, passing all the dirt roadies, having an absolute blast, hooting and hollering, jumping off the side hits. The energy was high and the stoke was pegged at the beginning of this race, especially on this first downhill. So we had a great time ripping down that, and then after Magic Moss section, you have a brief gravel road, and then there's aid station number 1. I quickly stopped at this aid station, grabbed some water from my bottles, and dumped in my 2 Martin 320 drink mix packs into them, sealed them back up, and then set off. Now the next section is rough, literally. This is called the Death Climb, and they just laid down some fresh gravel. I mean, gravel chunks like this big, not the real fine, like nice smooth rolling gravel, or even like the gravel that you'd put like underneath your shed. I'm talking like this was just rocks. It's just huge gravel. It was not fun to ride on, and pretty much the whole climb was this type of material that was laid down on this road just recently. So the climb was rather rough, literally, and this climb is roughly 3,500 feet of ascent. It was a long, long slog up this climb to aid station 2. Once you get up to aid station 2, I had kind of lost touch with Aaron. He is a very good climber, much lighter than myself, so he had pulled away with another group, and I had kind of dropped back. Again, wanted to maintain my pacing rather than try to keep up with them. So I just stayed in my zone and climbed up to aid station 2. Now this is where I met up with actually my brother and wife, who were volunteering at the aid stations, helping out all the riders.
Martin on this one too?
Yes.
Feeling good, boss man? No cramps or anything?
Not yet.
Awesome.
A long, gravelly climb.
Yeah.
They just put down fresh gravel.
Nice. We drove up it. It was like, oh my God, this is brutal.
So it was great to catch up with them at aid station 2. I let Brian rip around in my truck to all the aid stations, and it was just great to see them in the middle of the race and have their support, and know that they were out there supporting all the other riders as well. So I took a little bit longer rest at this aid station. I ate a fig bar, drank a little bit of water because I started to overheat a little bit on that climb, just going slower and being out in the sun. And then from aid station 2, there's more climbing. Get this, right? So you get up to the top, which you think is the top, and there's more climbing, and it's just steep double track dirt roads all the way up to the top. Once you get up to the very top, there is a wicked downhill. This is referred to as Wild Oak Trail, or Grindstone, as some people refer to it as if you're in the know or a local. And it is very steep, very rough. You would rather be on an enduro bike than a cross-country bike going down it, that is for sure. My brakes were screaming at me, they hated me, but yeah, you're just rolling down this downhill, trying not to use your brakes as much as you can because they're hating you, but it's so rough you don't want to flat. So it's kind of this weird balancing act of, you know, using your brakes to stay just enough in control, but also keeping your speed up so you don't overburn your brakes or just, you know, lose brakes altogether. It was honestly that steep. I've never been on a trail like that was just so unrelentingly steep on that cross-country bike before. But the brakes held up. I made it to the bottom with no flats and no punctures, but it's not just all downhill. It is some absolutely punchy climbs mixed into. Just when you think you get relief, you're just bombarded with a super rough, steep downhill and then some really punchy climbs. But this was a great section of the race, and I really enjoyed it. I made up a lot of time coming down this downhill. I was able to have clear trail in front of me, and I wasn't bottled up behind other riders, which was great. Once you get down to the very bottom of this descent, there is aid station number 3. So at this point, this is where I wanted to be, to really kind of open it up and allow whatever energy I had left to kind of just kick in and take over. I made it through the roughest section of the trail, or roughest section of the course, I should say. So from aid station 3, I refilled my Martin drink mix bottles. I made it down from aid station 2 to 3 relatively quickly. So I still had like 1 bottle almost left. So I drank most of that before refilling, which might have been a mistake, because right after aid station 3, my stomach started to get a little bit distressed. Could have been because of the fig bar, could have been because I drank an extra. I was 1 bottle ahead at this point versus my pacing of 1 bottle per hour. But my stomach got a little bit distressed and started to have a little bit of cramping or like bloating going on. So from aid station 3, you go down Tillman Road, which is just a regular gravel road. It's a little bit rough, but nothing like the Death Climb Road. And then you go to Narrowback Mountain, which we've ridden plenty of times. So between aid station 3 and Narrowback Mountain, I kind of relaxed and chilled. It allowed my stomach to recover, which worked out really well, because on the climb up Narrowback, I never had any more issues. Everything kind of resolved and went away. So I made it up all of Narrowback Mountain, and I get to the top, and I finally get to descend the flowiest trail in all of the George Washington National Forest, Tillman West. We have video on this. Please check it out. It is an absolute blast of a downhill. Super fast, super flowy, tabletops, berms, jumps. I mean, just, it's incredible. So we get down to the bottom of this. I cross the creek. I'm feeling rejuvenated. You know, my stomach's better. Just had a great downhill. I'm definitely tired, but I'm feeling good. So I come out onto Tillman Road and I just rip down Tillman Road back to aid station 4, which is at the exact same spot as aid station 3 and the Wild Oak Trailhead parking lot. But I'm in aero mode, you know, gripping the bars right by the stem, just ripping down this gravel road, doing like 25 mile an hour. Just feeling great. I pull into aid station 4 and I get there just 2 minutes after Brian and Teresa, my brother and wife, have made it back from aid station 2 to help at aid station 3 and 4.
All right, Teresa and I just made it to station 3/4. Waiting for Chris up this hill. Brother! How you making it, big dog?
Good, dude.
Good luck, Cap.
So it was great to see them right before my last push to the finish line. I refilled my 2 bottles that I had, drank a little bit of water because I was feeling a little dehydrated from the stomach cramps in me that had been playing into it. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to cramp on this last stage. So drank a little bit of water and then filled up my 2 bottles and I left. But I was able to actually meet back up with Aaron, the guy that I had met originally going down the Magic Moss downhill. So I definitely made up some good time, and my plan and pacing strategy was really working. I was feeling good going into this last climb up Hankey Mountain. There's a brief road section before that we had all kind of grouped up with. So it was Aaron, myself, and another single speeder. We're ripping down this road section, turns into gravel, and then you start going up the double track of Hankey Mountain. And it's a rather steep, kind of unrelenting double track. And at this point, you know, the funness had sort of worn off. I was tired. Aaron was dealing with some cramps. You know, everybody is just beat up at this point in the race, just kind of hanging on and trying to get to the finish line. But this double track climb is roughly, 1,000, 1,500 feet of climbing. It's the last real climb before the finish line. So, you know, we're just grinding up it. You know, we're standing up, pedaling, kind of giving our legs a little bit of break, sitting down, spinning, standing up, pedaling. But Aaron and I are just, you know, we're helping each other out, giving each other words of encouragement to make it up to this last section. As we get towards the top, the sky's open, lightning, thunderstorms rolling across the mountain, which we had kind of heard might be in the forecast, so we weren't shocked by it.
It's raining now, Chris. I'm gonna wait for you. I'm gonna be here. Watch you come down there. You better be freaking flying, just hammering it out.
But it was honestly welcomed at that point. We were hot, we were sweaty, the rain felt great, and it was never like a torrential downpour or crazy winds that made us feel unsafe.
Update, it's really raining now. I found a tree. We're good to go. Waiting for you, Chris. Let's do it.
But we made it up to the very top and we turned left onto the ridge, and the ridge kind of traverses up and down. It's the same section of trail that we had started on. So we were familiar with it from earlier in the day. At least I was. I think Aaron had ridden there quite a few times. But I was familiar with it. So we're going up and down, and we're on one of the climbs. Aaron and I are just, chatting. I'm like, hey, how close are we to this 8-hour cutoff? My time says, 7:30 or something like that. But it had been pausing for stops. I couldn't cycle through to the other screen for some reason. And Aaron says, like, hey, I think we can make this 8-hour time goal, but it's going to be close. I'm like, well, that's all I needed to hear. Let's get after it. So I'm going to empty everything that I have in these last couple of climbs and this descent. I'm just going to tear it up with reckless abandon. Even though it had just rained, I was just going to let it loose. And Aaron's like, all right, I'm with you. So we start hammering up the climbs, and on the downhills, we're just absolutely blasting through these puddles. Mud's flying everywhere. My glasses are all filled up. I can barely see. I'm drifting around every corner, just letting it all hang out because I really want to make this 8-hour goal. If I come up a minute short, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be pissed at myself that I didn't give it more. So I'm just giving it down this downhill. We finally get down to the bottom, rip some berms through the Stokesville campground area, a couple little tabletops. It opens up into the field, and I finally see the finish line.
Let's go,
I'm so
Chris!
stoked. Aaron's right behind me. We're just going after it. I throw a little XC whip off of one of the rollers,
Yeah!
cut across the off-camber wet grass turn, and then go right back up to the finish line. And I'm thinking Aaron and I are just like, cool, we're cool. We're just gonna go right across the finish line, no need to sprint or anything for it. Aaron tries to give me a run for the line. I'm not having it. So I stand up with everything that I got left and power through across the finish line. The finish just in front of Aaron.
Yeah, a little slicing, a little dicing, a little partying across the line. Yeah.
But we had an absolute blast. We dapped each other up after it and talked about how great it was to be able to ride that last section together and encourage each other on the climb and also the descent, just having an absolute blast, tearing it up down to the finish line. So once I crossed the finish line, my mom was there, my brother was there, my wife was there, just waiting to celebrate and congratulate me on this crazy accomplishment, this crazy goal that I had set back in January. It was kind of a surreal moment. I was almost a little bit numb physically at that point, just from riding for so long. I was feeling no pain. I was just so happy. So it was a really special moment to cross the finish line in the rain. Family's there. Aaron and I just doing that last descent together. It was an absolute blast. So I really couldn't have asked for a better race, and I was just so thankful that my family was there to support me. So after crossing the finish line and celebrating with my family, we all kind of made our way to the pavilion to get out of the rain. And I had, of course, my celebratory beer. Poured myself a tall glass of Yingling, which I had been craving since the last climb. I was just thinking of that beer. I was like, I've got to get to the finish line and get that beer just to celebrate. So it felt really good. It felt accomplished. My legs were definitely tired at the end of the race, but I didn't feel like I was just totally wrecked and couldn't even walk. But it was quite the experience to go throughout the entire year training for this event. Do the event, stick to my pacing plan, stick to my nutrition strategy throughout the race, and to finish not only the race, but to finish in 7 hours and 50 minutes. 10 minutes less than my goal time of 8 hours. I think Aaron might have been messing with me. We said it was going to be close at the 8-hour mark. But nonetheless, we hammered and we finished in less than 8 hours, and I could not be happier. It was honestly an achievement that I didn't think was possible back in January when I set this goal. But I really wanted to push myself physically this year on the fitness side of the sport. I'm glad that I did so because I really enjoyed it. I want to do more events like this in the future. Maybe not the exact same one, but just future events. I'm all in on the cross-country racing. I think it's an absolute blast. And I hope that this video inspires you to maybe do something similar. Whether it's mountain biking, running, whatever it is, just push yourself. Set a goal that you think is a little bit outside of what you think you're capable of, and you might surprise yourself. All right, that's it for today. Thanks again for watching. My name's Chris. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. See you in a future video, hopefully. All right, out.
Jennifer, Chris, I am for Steve.